Hey, what's up everybody? It's Mike B with Bombero Bus, and today I'm going to be putting a CSP bell crank linkage onto Roxanne, the 1970 bus. So the video's not going to be about that linkage so much because I just did a video on that when I put it on the Bug. But what it's really going to be about is the synchronization of those two carbs after it's installed. They're EPC 34s, and I've had somebody ask me before, how do I tune those and synchronize them? So we'll get the linkage on there and then talk about the finer points of, syncing and tuning those carbs, at least the way I do it. And there are some things that we've found are pretty common, and one of them is right here on the throttle. A lot of times people aren't getting the throttle wide open when the pedal is to the floor, or it might not be returning fully and closing when the pedal is up. Things like that. And how we start right here with the idle and then tune it up with the mixture right there. So those are things we'll get to in the video. For now, I'm going to go ahead and get this hex bar linkage off of here, and then we'll get to the tuning of these carbs. Okay, for me to get started tuning these, this is still set to where it was before I took this linkage off. But I've already learned that the helper spring that comes with that bell crank isn't enough to fully return my throttle to closed. So I use these springs to make sure that happens. But the spring tension is important because you got to make sure that it's enough to let you open up to full throttle without being a bear on your foot, and that it's also strong enough to return it fully closed. And these are good for that, and I have them on both of them. So to start tuning it up, I know I could start it up and it would idle right now because it's at the setting it was. But I'm going to undo it totally to show you. And what I'm looking at is this idle set screw right here. Right there. I'm going to back it out until that is no longer touching this carburetor. So you see that gap starting to decrease in there, and I'll do it until it's no longer touching. All right, and then I'll do it on this one also. All right, it's all clear and it's not touching. Just what I'm going to do is start screwing this idle set screw in until it touches. See this gap? And take up that gap and it touches, and then go 1.5 turns after that. But what I found is that could give me an inaccurate reading, so I think it's more important to look right here, because I'm going to start screwing in on this until I see movement right there. And when I do, I'll go 1.5 turns from there. So let's start turning it in. I want to see lateral movement to the driver's side, so that little bit of sloppiness there isn't what I'm talking about. Okay, I feel like I just saw movement there. So let me go back in and out again to double check it. All right, right there. So right there, I started seeing movement on this going out that way. So from that point on, I'm going to go 1.5 turns further in. So 1/2. 1, 1.5. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, now that we think we got the idle set screws ready, we're going to do the mixture screws here. And what I'm going to do is show you from a scratch setting. So I'm going to dial this all the way in until it comes to a stop, just barely. I'm not going to put any pressure on it. There it comes to a soft stop. So I'll do the same thing on this one. And dial it in until it comes to a soft stop. There you go. Reason I'm doing that is they say that the factory setting for that is 2 turns to the left, just to get your stuff going. So I'll do that, 2 turns to the left. So 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, and the same thing over here. To the left, 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2. All right, so those are the settings that should be good enough to get this to go ahead and start up, and then we can fine tune it from there. So let's see if it starts up and holds its idle. All right, there you go. So those settings are good enough to get it started, so you can fine tune it from there. I'm going to let it warm up. I like to tune it when it's a little more warm. But you can clearly see it's not synchronized yet, and the mixture screws probably have to be fine tuned also. Okay, so after it's warming up, it sounds like it's idled a little too high to me. So I'm going to start backing off on the idle screws and see if I can get it to balance out some. Okay, to me that's holding a good enough idle even as it warms up to move forward. So you're going to see me go to those mixture screws now. And I'm going to start turning them in a 1/4 turn at a time and listen for the engine to start to stumble. When the engine stumbles, I'll stop and I'll turn it a 1/4 back out to the left. I'll try that on both of them, see how we get. Starting to stumble, I'm going to go back a 1/4 turn. Okay, we got it as close as I can by ear. Now we're going to pop those air filters off and use the sync gauge on top of each carburetor and see what kind of numbers we're pulling and get those synchronized. So this is the one I'm going to use. It's not your traditional Snell gauge. Ours broke, but I borrowed this one from a buddy who does it pretty regular. So what I'm going to do is get it running. I'm going to set this on top of there oh, it's a bus. So somehow I got to try to read that and make sure that those numbers come out the same on this carb and on that carb. Okay, you can see that left one was bouncing off of 10. So now we'll put it on this right one and see where it's at. Okay, so you saw that right one had a reading of 12 or more. So the thing to do is to bring the higher one down to the lower one. So I'll bring this one down on its idle until I can get that one and that one to match. Okay, we're getting there, and one of the things is our snail gauge that we're accustomed to is broken. So now we're going to try this one, recently acquired, and check both carbs with that. Okay, I've been messing with those idle set screws. We're going to use this one. And you see where that fork goes to, that first line? Take it on this one. The first line. So according to this one, which we've never used, those are synced and the idle sounds pretty good. Okay, it's the next day, and after tuning it, I put the bell crank linkage on there, so we'll fire it up and see how it's holding that tune. There's a lot more to it than that, and that's just a general idea of how to get things going your way. So for now, after the linkage is on, I'm gonna get Kevin to put the gas pedal to the floor and guarantee that we're getting full throttle back here, because that's one of the big mistakes that I see. All right, so go ahead. Okay, so he's got the pedal all the way to the floor. So we have full throttle when the pedal's all the way down. Okay, now let it up. And now I'm going to check for full return. Okay, so it appears we have full throttle when the pedal's to the floor, and that when he lets it up, the throttle is closing all the way too. So yeah, go ahead and fire it up, man. Got a nice sound to it. The idle sounds pretty good. It seems to be balanced enough. And in the end, the settings that ended up working good for this is right here on the idle set screw was about 2 turns out. And then on the mixture was a 1 1/4 out. So all the way to the right stopped, and then counterclockwise to 1 1/4. That's what's working on this. And really, they say if you need to turn this out in more than 1.5 turns, richen it up more than 1.5 turns, that's could be likely that you might benefit from a bigger idle jet. So those are the little things you have to run and fine tune from there, but I'm gonna call this one good. Okay, after doing that type of work, you're just not done until you take it on a road test and see if things are gonna hold up. So let's hit the road. So yeah, what I want is for it to start up like that, not at a high idle. All this has been doing by ear. I can hear it by now. My RPM gauge, I use the hot wire off of that to power something else. So the idle sounds good. It's not too high. left to do is run it for a little while and then come back and read the plugs. There's other things you can do, like the jets inside there, the main jets and the air correction jet. But you just got to get it running like this at least first, and then you take it out on the road and you spend some time with it, and you make decisions on your jet sizes and experiment from there. You can check here after you run it for a while and see if you have, you know, too much black there or not enough. That's a pretty good color. But ultimately, you run it for a while, you go back, pull your plugs, see if they're too lean or too rich, and you just experiment from there. But for now, I feel like it's running good. We got the new linkage on there, so that's going to be it for this vid. I hope it helped. If it did, don't forget to like and subscribe. But either way, thanks for hanging out with Bombero Bus, and we'll see you on the next one.